We're live. Hello, besties and bosses. How are y'all doing? I'm excited to hang with you. This is our last stream of 2025, which is so crazy to me. I feel like this year, I don't know, I feel like it went by, I don't know, maybe that's my age. I feel like it went by really quickly. But I'm excited to dive into this with all of you. I will not be live. So we will pick up the, what is it, January 5th. It's that first Wednesday back in the new year. So I will be here. We'll have a new live stream topic for you. We'll continue with mini masterclasses. So it's obviously not our last live stream ever, but I will be dropping new podcast episodes on Mondays throughout the holidays for you. So I've got some fun episodes that are, I think, really great for this time of year, just in terms of some things that I really learned that helped me have my best year in business. Got a fun word of the year episode if you're into that, both my word of the year lessons, but also one question I ask, so spoiler alert, in terms of how I think and come up with my word of the year, because I've been doing that since before I had my business, actually. Gosh, it's like 11 years now. I learned about it in coach training. So it's a fun practice. I'll be sharing about that. We have an episode, it's a fun money goal, like setting for the new year episode, a question that I ask around that. And then we also have an episode coming up in the new year around with a friend of mine, with a guest friend, about AI and I think some juicy stuff that'll be relevant to this conversation as well. So those will be dropping over the holidays. So even though I won't be live with you here, you can definitely tune in there. We will also make sure you have access. If you go to my website or if you sign up for the Vault, we have, I think, over 300 lives at this point. The Vault has, I think, 70 or 80 since we've started that, which are the podcast audio format of these mini masterclasses. So if you want to connect and you want to feel like you can get some of this while we're gone, we can connect that way. I'll still have lots for you over the holidays. Okay, let me pull this up in the group. Looking forward to this conversation, though. And I also want to know, what is everybody doing? I know some people are traveling for the holidays. Happy Hanukkah to those of you who celebrate. I know that started on Monday. I am going upstate. I celebrate Christmas. I'm going upstate, and I spend it with my family. Sometimes I go overseas to the Netherlands. This year I'm going upstate to be with my dad's side of the family. And I think there are 49 of us, so wish me luck, because that will be both fun and also 49 of us. So, there's that. Let's dive in to what I want to talk about today. So I thought we could do a little bit of kind of a predictions live stream. It's interesting. I have not seen, I was talking about this with my coach, I haven't seen a lot of those this year, and I'm trying to figure out why. I'm wondering if it's just because this year, like, so much changed and people don't know what to predict, or if so many people were thrown by this year, or I don't know, but I feel like people still like to hear those. So what I thought we could do is pull up my predictions from last year and see what worked and what didn't work, and then I'll share what I'm looking at for next year, and then just a reminder around this conversation that I think is really important and true for all of us. Maybe I'll actually start with that. The reason I wanted to look at last year's predictions, I think, is more, I do this, I share this in one of the podcast episodes coming up. I think there's just such a benefit for us looking backwards to look forward. I actually just had a VIP day with a client here in person, and we mapped out, so it is amazing what you can do. This is a client who I also work with ongoing, but it's amazing what you can do when you've got like 8 hours of CEO time with your coach, just to like sit down side by side and to go through every aspect of your business. I mean, I think it was really, it actually made me love offering those more. I don't have a lot of capacity for them, but I might actually open up a couple more in the new year, because I think it's just really valuable to have that like block of time to dig into things. But one of the things we did first is actually look back at this year, at all of her launches, at everything that was going on, so we could both see the successes, because success leaves clues, to see what to double down on, but also to see, what were some of the things that didn't work, or that we want to adjust, or that we want to refine before making the plan for next year, where we mapped out her launch plan and all of her content and kind of everything that's working there. We also mapped out a very like doable strategy for her to add on 190K or more in revenue next year. But we had to first look backwards to look forward. So I thought we could do that today here. I will pull up my predictions from last year, just really briefly, but just so we can see, like, let's just see like what worked, what didn't work, if those were true or not. And then I'll share again some of my predictions going into 2026, what I'm thinking about a lot and what I'm implementing. And what I'll start with, and what just feels so important with these conversations to say, I think the biggest thing to remember with predictions, I'm going to share just overall what I'm seeing from my business, like the landscape through my clients. So I do think, like I definitely have a perspective and lens. I've been doing this for a very long, March will be 10 years in business. I've been coaching for 11 or 12. And I see businesses every day because I'm one-on-one. So I do have a perspective from that, and I study the industry, kind of a nerd that way. Like I actually like to, that gotta like what you do. As one of my clients reflected to me, they're like, you could just tell you love what you do so much. So I do study this stuff. So I do have some context in terms of where these predictions are coming from. And at the end of the day, this is what I always remind my clients. The biggest predictor for what is going to work for you next year in your business is your own business. So what we're talking about today, I would invite you to do this in your own business. Look back at your business over this past year and what has been true with your business, with your audience, with your algorithm, with what you've been implementing, and use that to make some predictions for yourself. Your business will always give you the data and the answers. Your business will always give you the tea leaves as well in terms of predictions and things to pay attention to and to test, and some things that might not be true or not, but that is just always going to give you the best. So there might be some things I say today which are like, oh, I really want to think about that and implement that. That feels really true. There might be some things I say today that do not feel relevant or true for you at all. Please, for the love of all good things, remember, I'm a one-on-one coach for a reason. There is no one size fits all, and I also do not have a fucking crystal ball. I think, if anything, the last couple of years have shown us online is things are changing really quickly, and there's a lot that we can't predict as well. Okay, that is my piece there. But I really do think if you hear nothing else from this live stream, I do think all of us would serve our businesses really well to spend more time looking at what our business is telling us, and not just looking at numbers, but also looking at other data and indicators in our business, and taking some time, some CEO time, whether that's with your coach or you take a day or some time to really reflect on that and to see what is that telling me, what do I want to lean into and do more of. Your business will always give you the answers. Okay, so let's pull. This is from January 8th of this year. Here were some of my predictions. Again, we'll just go through these quickly and then I will share next year's. So one of my predictions was this was going to be the year of the personal brand. I think that's really ended up being actually more true than I thought when I made that prediction. I think the reason for the prediction that I had at the time is just similar to what we talked about in Social Currency, the masterclass I just ran. I did make that evergreen for y'all. I wasn't going to. I'll drop a link for that here if you want to sign up for that. I walked through my three-part framework for how to build social currency. But I think one of the reasons for the personal brand and why I thought that back last year, and I think this will continue to be true, is the trust recession, for how saturated it is. And I think AI has played into that more than we realize. I won't go into too much of that now because I'll share some predictions for next year. But I think we, in some ways, underestimated how AI was going to affect certain things. And I think we, in many ways, over-index with using AI to try to create branding this year and to make a personal brand. And I think that's actually one of the things, not my prediction, but I just think that's one of the things that did not work. I've had multiple conversations this week with clients who either are noticing in their own content because they've over leaned on AI to create it, or they're seeing it in other things where they're like, I don't even want to sign up for this shit anymore. Like, I actually really liked this person and brand, but you can just tell everything is AI generated now and it doesn't feel like them. And I want nothing to do with it. And I could just go to AI to get that information. This is some of the conversation I'm having with the expert I'm bringing on the podcast. But she has a very special skill set just in terms of how to get found on AI, which we'll be talking about in the new year on the podcast. But I think for that reason, a personal brand is, I think that was a trend or a prediction that was absolutely true. But I think that's going to be even more true as going to the new year. And I'll talk more about that because I do think, I think in some ways we knew this. And again, I think we just went around personal branding in a non-personal way by using AI a little too much. Okay, so I said my prediction was this is the year of scaling smarter, not harder, in terms of one of my predictions. I do think we've seen that quite a bit across the board. In terms of when I think of scaling smarter, not harder, I really think about actually scaling in the true sense of scaling and having your revenue outpace your expenses and effort, and not necessarily increasing profitability, but making sure that you're not just scaling your top line revenue and having basically your expenses and effort match that or keep up with that, where you actually get to take home more pay. Sometimes that does mean a decrease in profit margin, but because your overall revenue is higher, you get to take home more. This could be just the circles I'm in and the clients I work with, but I have just seen more of this, and I think I've just seen more people craving this and sort of being over chasing just the big fancy metrics and really being like, yeah, but what does it take to make that number and how much of that do I actually get to take home? So I think that prediction held true. And I do think as we, just to kind of, in terms of what that has to do with next year, I do think as we are seeing, it does, I don't want to say that it takes more effort. In some ways it takes more effort. It takes more money, effort, time to create a client, I think, than it did in the past. And so I think because of that, I think we're just seeing people who are just so over some of the old teachings that were only about top line revenue. So I do think that will continue to hold true. Okay, so it was the year of quality over quantity. Okay, this is interesting. I think that prediction did and did not come true. In terms of what worked this year, I think absolutely. I think the year of quantity over quality, or using quality to create quantity. Quantity to create quality. Sometimes you have to do things a lot to get better at them. But I think overall, less is more, and really being intentional and focused is what worked in 2025. However, I don't know that that's necessarily what we saw across the board. So in terms of what worked, I think that was absolutely a true prediction. I saw that in my own business. I saw that in so many clients. Again, I'm having my best year in business in 10 years of business by about $20,000. And we added between 80 to 100K from last year to this year. So just to give context there, I have many clients who are really seeing this is the year of quality over quantity as well. Again, I think that's nuanced because some of my clients who have focused on doing less better, less in terms of different strategies, but some of them did iterate more so that they could refine their strategy, get more data points to create that quality. But I do think we also, just because of AI, I think we saw a lot of people just spraying and praying and dumping. I think that's part of the reason reach is down. I think our feed just got flooded, quite honestly, with crapola. I don't think it worked at all, and I think we're going to see more and more of a backlash this year on that. So this is an interesting one. I think it's a prediction that was true in terms of what worked this year, and I think what will continue to work, but I don't think it's necessarily what we saw the mainstream of our space do, and I think that's why, honestly, a lot of businesses have struggled. Okay, transparent sales and level setting expectations. Okay, this is one of, I think these are also my wishes for the year. I think this is kind of similar to what I was just saying in terms of the quality over quantity. I think transparent sales and level setting expectations absolutely worked this year. I saw this work in my own business. I cannot tell you how many conversations I had with people where it's like I could not have been more, like I would joke where like this is like the worst sales conversation ever, because like let me just like really level set expectations, or like here's what it's really going to take to create this result, or like here's the trade-off, is that something you want? And that's what helped me to attract a really great client, because they're like, I trust you for being honest with me. Also, like that is what I want. And then that was great for me because I like long-term partnerships. So then I know I have someone who's like not looking at me to be like the guru with all the secrets that I don't have, but really to be a partner with them, and we both know kind of what's involved in the work we're both signing up for. So I do think that prediction held to be very true, and I think that is what people are really, really craving in our online space. I've heard from so many people how refreshing that is and how much they wish they could have more of that. I do think more and more people are just getting turned off and don't trust the kind of gimmicky sales and the sales that aren't transparent. I think even if we think about the fact that you can now like hide likes on social media, I mean, you do you, but I think even things like that feels less transparent to people, and I think we will see that harm sales. So I think overall, kind of like with the idea of the personal brand, we just saw how much transparency, level setting expectations, giving people a real look, right? That's part of the personal branding, a real look into our business, into our lives, what it takes to get results, of how our program works. I even saw this with clients. I shared this on one of our live streams recently, but quite a few clients and launches, we just really looked at ways for not just how can we share more social proof, but how can we have more transparent sales in terms of sharing a little bit more behind the scenes, giving them insight into like, could we give them a module? Could we let them hear a recording from something? Could we, and we also level set expectations in terms of how many hours it would actually take for them to show for this program to get a result. And we saw that work really well. Quite a few clients have their best launches ever this year. So I think that's a prediction that was absolutely true. I don't know how many people implemented that, but from the clients I saw implement this, and for myself, I saw that really hold true. And I think that will continue to hold true into 2026. And then the year of strategic customer journeys and funnels, and treating your business like a business. Do I think this prediction came true or not? And treating your business like a business. I think yes and no. So I think in terms of what worked this year, absolutely. I mean, some of these things that I shared, to be fair, are like tried and true things that I think were predictions in terms of like what really, like I was doubling down on what to focus on. Look, I think strategic customer journeys kind of matter more than ever with all the noise online this year. And I think I've never spent more time than I did in 2025 with clients on their strategic customer journey, whether that was like really getting clear on a landing, like editing a landing page or going through every slide of a webinar, or redoing in sales emails, or revamping positioning on a webinar, or really looking at social media content and positioning because that's the front end of the funnel, or updating ads to make sure we're attracting the right leads through the funnel. Right? I've never spent more time in my business like drilling in with clients, even if I think about the VIP day that I just had versus one that I had by the same time last year. Just even like what we were focusing on was just, I mean, different clients, but still different, similar things that we're working on in their businesses. I'm just seeing how some of those things that maybe a couple of years ago I'd be like, I just don't think we need to focus on this. Like I really think in the past, in fact, I know in the past I've coached clients like around webinar stuff where I'm like, it's just like, it's good. We don't need to like overly work this, and it's fine because you're getting the results you want. Where now we have just been really, really doubling down on that. I just think it does matter so much more. So in terms of what works, like absolutely, I think this works, and so does treating your business like a business. And I think whenever something that works is something that requires more time and effort from us, what we also see as a trend in the space is marketing that really sells the opposite. And so in terms of like my prediction, I think practically speaking, yes, that is what actually worked in 2025, and I think will continue to work into 2026. I think though what we started to see in the online space was a lot of marketing that was almost speaking to like how you didn't need these things, or like just how to get viral on social media, like the pieces that feel a lot easier and that really a lot of like business is so easy and soft error and just different things that basically told you didn't have to treat your business like a business, because that is really palatable and sexy, right? When what actually works is, oh, it has to be hard work grinded out, but it's like you do have to be a little intentional. Your shit does have to be a little bit better. We do need to go through. Whereas like 3 years ago, you could just, I did it myself. I had perfectly good master classes, but I had a bunch of notes and I just kind of, no, I didn't, they were intentional, but I put far less time into them, is maybe a better way to say it. I do have to put a lot more intentionality and time into them for them to work the same way or better currently. And nobody wants to hear that, right? Like it's such sexier marketing to be like, here is my strategy where you don't have to do any of that. I think, yes, this is what actually worked and will continue to work. And I think because of that, what we saw in terms of a marketing trend, or what we saw in terms of a business trend, was a lot of things telling you this one easy thing, which has probably always been true in marketing, that you needed to do to get a result, right? Like just have this one simple freebie where you never need to get on a call with anybody or do anything, and you too will make a gazillion dollars, that kind of misses the context and doesn't level set expectations like we were talking about. Okay, 2 more here, and then I do want to move on to New Year's predictions. But let me know if you have questions, thoughts. We're still kind of revisiting this past year because, again, I do think success leaves clues. And so I hope it's helpful to also hear like the recap of last year predictions. Okay, so other last year prediction for last year, it's still this year, 2025 prediction was offers with some kind of personal support or implementation unless it's low ticket. I absolutely saw that to be absolutely game changing. A lot of my clients who have higher ticket programs, we really looked at not just how to include the personal support, but really how to highlight that in the marketing itself. And that was a prediction for 2025 that I think will still be true in 2026, hands down. And again, not like you might already have a program that includes quite a bit of personal support. I think in terms of what I would say for 2026, that I would really encourage all, because I think almost everybody here has some sort of personal component service part of their business. I would really encourage you to really highlight that and speak to that often, and how much you want to do that and how great that is, and like what a differentiator that is for results and for the type of support. Similarly, if you're someone who does implementation, I've coached quite a few clients this year to add on an implementation component to their offers, which we didn't have in the past. And the thought process behind this is, what can you do that AI is not able to do or offer? And not just like what can other people not do, but really what can you do that is different from AI? Because I do think a lot of people are considering that with certain types of offers. Anyway, I saw that trend to play, or prediction to be true. I think it will actually be even more true as we go into 2026. And then the last one was being willing to master the game of organic and step that up or spend more on ads. I really saw that prediction to be true in 2025. In some ways, that was an easy prediction just because of how saturated it was. But what I didn't expect is how much AI or the way AI was going to impact that. Because when I made these predictions in 2025, was I even using it? I don't think, I mean, AI was still a thing, but like, I think we were all still kind of like figuring that out. And I think in some ways, I think a lot of us thought that was going to make it easier. I think AI has made everything, um, maybe just different is maybe the way to say it, but I think most of us have to spend more on content because we have to make sure it doesn't sound like AI. And I do think most people are having some combination of organic and ads. I do think that has been true in 2025. I have one additional ad for 2026. Okay, so that's, I would say most of my predictions were pretty spot on for this year, with some caveats there in terms of like what people actually wanted to hear, what they actually did. So let's talk about my predictions, what I think, what I'm focusing on. I don't want to say predictions, but these are just some of the things I'm focusing on with clients as we're headed into 2026 that see if they land for you and that I would really consider. And I just need one sip of my coffee. Let's start with social media and AI, because I think those are two of the areas that are really relevant for everyone. So I think, I don't even know if this is a prediction as much as this is just true, but I do think we are just going to see this play out far more into 2026, is shifting from thinking of social media like a social media where we think about growing followers and talking to our followers, and really shifting into interest media. And I think this is, this is the TikTokification of everything. I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but if not, I'll like give us a brief like social media 101 on this. TikTok, I think, has just been the app that came into play that has basically dominated. And so every other app is trying to figure out, mimic them the best they can, right? We've had remember the Clubhouse days? We've had other apps come and go. Obviously, Facebook is still here, Instagram is still here, LinkedIn is still here, YouTube is still there. But they're basically all looking at TikTok has just dominated what they're doing. And what TikTok has done very well, I've only just got on it, so like I'm not a TikTok expert here or anything, but they are much more interest-based than follower-based. So it doesn't really matter how many followers you have on TikTok, right? It's a lot more of an even playing field. It is just a very smart algorithm that, based on your content, based on the interest of that, it'll put it in front of people who want to consume that. We are starting to see that across, I think all the platforms' algorithms are moving more towards that. And I think that's just really important for us to understand from a marketing perspective, because it used to be more, what can I put in front of my audience, right? And so we're creating content for our audience, but also for people who are warmer to us. As opposed to, if we're shifting to interest media, that means just the way we think about marketing has to shift a little bit. And the way I'm just thinking about this, I'm not like overly thinking about it too much, but I'm thinking, okay, if this is going out to someone who isn't in my audience and who is cold to me, would this still make sense? And of course, some content is just going to go more to my warm audience than cold audience, but I am keeping that in mind. And then I'm thinking, if this is more interest, if the algorithm is more interest based, how can I make sure, just to be clear and specific, and I'm not an SEO expert or anything, but just a little bit to think through, like, what are some keywords, what are some SEO that I can be including in my content, so that I am helping the algorithm put this in front of the people who want to consume this type of content. Just a few months ago, and again, this literally might shift in 3 months. Shit like changes so quickly online. But on Instagram in particular, just a few months ago, I was definitely telling clients, like, almost like, don't overly talk about, I'll use myself as an example. Like, I wasn't overly using business topics in my hooks, because that's not what necessarily was working. And I was more like sharing that in my caption and being a little bit more like personality driven, because that's what people were consuming. But now that this has shifted a little bit towards interest driven, right, I'm thinking, I actually do need to include some keywords. And I think with that, what we are wanting to consume on social media, I think we also almost got sick of too much fluff. And I've heard that from multiple people. And so I think we are also coming back to a time of like, we do want a little bit more meat on the bone in our content, even if it is something entertaining. So those are things I'm thinking about with social media, and I think those are some of my predictions going into the new year. Again, this might change 3 months from now. It's both kind of like currently what's working, but what I just see as a prediction, I think we'll want a little less fluff, a little more meat on the bone. I do think more interest-driven, SEO-driven content is going to be able to capture more interest, and thinking about how could this work for cold traffic as well as warm traffic. Just on the Instagram kind of lens, in terms of what I'm seeing working, and just my prediction, at least for the first half of 2026, I think more carousels. I'm personally seeing them perform sometimes better in terms of reach, but definitely in terms of engagement and what is turning into conversations. and clients or people in my DMs and comments. I still see that with Reels, but I just heard, who was it? Someone else was talking about this recently. They were sharing the stats on this. Anyway, I think it also makes sense if I think we are all just craving a little bit more depth and what I was saying, like less fluff. And I think a carousel can do that. And I think we also have no fucking attention span. And so if you think about it, if that's the case, especially when we're on Instagram or TikTok, we're not going on there for a 30-minute live stream like we are here. Like if you're here, you've made time for this, you're going to watch on the replay, you're going to listen in the vault, and you're probably like cooking or cleaning or doing something else. When we're on Instagram, right, we're looking for bite-sized things. And so if we want to deliver depth in a bite-sized way, a carousel is a really great way to do that because someone can easily swipe through and they feel like they have control over how quickly they can skim through that. I don't think on Instagram you can double speed things where, here, if you listen on the replay, hot tip, you can double speed this and same on a podcast. So I think that's also just one of the reasons why I think we'll see carousels perform really well. All right, let's talk AI and let me know as we're going through these if you agree with me, if you have questions, if you have reflections. Also, Nala came to visit. That is what we have like clashing stripes today. I should have gotten a sweater with her stripes. Hi, baby. Hi. I think she wants food, but she's just going to have to wait till we're done with our predictions. Okay, let's talk AI and some of my predictions here. Okay, I'm going to like really level set expectations here. I have obviously, cat hair on me, no idea where AI is going to go. It is, changing very quickly. I think it's not going anywhere, but I also think it's really interesting. I think in some ways it's more impressive than we expected. I think in some ways, I was talking about this with my stepson last night. He has concerns about his use of it and the environment. I think that's impacting, as it should, our use. But I also think in some ways it hasn't been everything we thought it was going to be. Who knows what the next iterations are? But I think, just kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, just in terms of how easy I think it is at this point for all of us to now spot AI written content and just to kind of like be like, it's not that I'm mad at it or that it's bad. It's just not by this person. I don't want to listen to it. So I think we're finding new ways to use AI, and it's not going to go anywhere. We've had AI. I mean, if you use Canva is AI. So it's not like this is a brand new thing anyway. But all of that is to say, is any of my thoughts, predictions around this could be completely false because these things are changing so quickly. I do think, though, we are going to see, because I think this is already happening, and I'm just looking at my own behavior and clients' behavior, I think we are going to see more people turning to AI for their searches and for their shopping and for their recommendations. And I think that is important to understand and to know if you are a business that currently uses SEO, that currently uses Google Ads, that even uses, honestly, social media for a lot of your, like, where you're giving recommendations and shopping, because it means we will probably see less traffic for searches, for recommendations on those platforms, because people will probably be going to AI unless those platforms like Google already has AI put into it. And I think it's pretty good from what I've heard, right? Unless they catch up and implement something as well. But I think that's, again, just important for us to know so we can understand how that impacts what our traffic source is, what our source is, again, for where people are finding us, and if we need to do anything to modify that. If you rely on all SEO, like a lot of my therapist clients use a lot of SEO, which is great, but this might be something that could affect you and you might want to think about. Definitely tune into, I'll tell you the date. It is January the 12th. I will have that guest on my podcast where she's going to dive into how to be found on AI. One of my clients also has a membership that teaches some of this as well. But these are things I would just be thinking about. I do think that that's my prediction, but I do think we'll see more of that. And I've heard Gary Vee talk about that. He's usually pretty good on those predictions. And it might not be that it impacts us so much this year, though I don't know, things evolve very rapidly with technology, but it might be something that affects us in a year or two. And with things like SEO or being indexed and found and recommended on AI, a lot of times it also takes a little bit of build up in terms of what you're implementing. So that's just a prediction, something I would be thinking about. One of the things I'm really thinking about, and maybe this is something I always think about, I talk about this in social currency, but just in terms of like some of the top things I'm thinking about are, how can I offer something that AI can't and that other people won't? I think that's just always something that's going to help differentiate any of us in business. I'm right. We're always thinking about how do we differentiate. But I think sort of that idea of like how can you be willing to do things other people aren't if you want to get results other people don't have, and not in like a burnout, gross, slimy, shady, sketchy way. Like I feel like that can sound so casting couch or something. I don't mean it like that at all. But I do think we are just going to be in a time where it is going to be more saturated at the bottom. And what I mean by that is more saturated at the bottom. Let me use this as an example. When I lived in Los Angeles and I was acting, there was no barrier to entry to be an actress or an actor, which meant it was saturated at the bottom, meaning people who had never acted a day in their life and who didn't even know how to read sides and, with all the love in the world, didn't have a lot of talent or skill, could go get headshots and put themselves in the pool and saturate the bottom. So it was really saturated at the bottom, which meant in order to stand out at the bottom and to show someone, but I'm not someone who just like decided they hate their job and wants to be an actor. Like I'm actually trained, I actually have talent, I actually know what I'm doing, I'm actually good at this. Right? You had to find ways to stand out, and you had to kind of be willing to do things other people weren't willing to do until you could kind of separate yourself from that pack. It's the same thing online, right? Because there is literally no barrier to entry for most of our fields. If you're a therapist, if you're a lawyer, I have some clients in those industries. Obviously there is a huge barrier to entry, so in some ways that gives you, I think, a lot of job security. And unfortunately AI is competing with your jobs. And this is a side note, if I was a therapist or if I was a lawyer, I would also be talking about how shitty AI is and how wrong it is and how false it is. I was just talking to a lawyer client of mine who someone tried to get their contract done on AI and it was missing, I think it was 8 or 12 really important components to protect their business. So, but that is what, that's even if you're qualified, right? There's more competition, saturation at the bottom because of AI, but also because there's no barrier to entry for a lot of us. And so anybody can come into the online space with promises of like, your job sucks and the world sucks and like, this is the way to get rich quick. And there's still people selling that. And like, look, I love that there's in some ways like that's how I got not trying to get rich quickly and not because I hated my job, but just in terms of like I was so glad that there weren't a ton of barriers to entry to start my business because it does make it easier than ever to start a business online. So that's not a bad thing. However, it does mean it is more saturated than ever. And so if it is more saturated at the bottom than ever, right, there is less saturated. The honest truth is I have it a lot easier now because I've been in business for 10 years. I'm very good at what I do. I have built a brand, I have built a reputation, I built relationships, right? Because I have that, because I'm the bottom sounds wrong, because I'm not just starting my business now, right? Because I've already done a lot of things other people won't do and separated myself and kind of created that differentiation. I actually have it a lot like I will just name that, like I do have it easier in many ways because of that. So it's easier to start a business now than it ever has been. But because of what we're saying here, that does mean if you're starting a business or sort of, I don't mean the bottom in a negative way. I just mean in like starting your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, right? Like you're in your first couple of years of business. I think what we have to see is we now have this added component of AI. And so we really have to be thinking about, and I think this is even for me, right? I am not untouchable. Like I cannot rest on my laurels. I will not rest on my laurels. And I think in many ways I have to, make sure I'm staying on top of things to future-proof my business and to make sure I'm also retaining clients because there is AI, because there are new people every day coming into the space, and I'm not owed anything. So I want to make sure I say that as well, because I think at every level of business it's important. But I think all of us, but especially if you're starting out, we need to be thinking about how can we offer something AI won't, and what are we willing to do that other people won't or aren't to get what we want. And again, not in a gross, like casting couch kind of way, but in a very real way. And I don't mean to like freak people out, but I think it's just helpful again to level set expectations to our earlier conversation. I think this is just part of the reality, and it can be as simple as something AI can't do is care. Something AI can't do is give a fuck. Like I wrote a post that I posted today, just this week, and it's only Wednesday. I've had, or I guess this would have been since last Friday, but in less than a week, I've had at least 5, if not more than 5 clients reflect how grateful they are to me. Yes, because I'm good at what I do, which they said, but also because they can tell how much I care. And something I was just thinking about, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like I care so, I mean, that's something you can't fake, right? Like AI can try to fake that, but we can tell the difference, right? Like you can, I don't have to like try to pretend that. That's just something you can't fake, right? And I don't try to be too cool for school. Like I'm just very happy to let people know I really care and I really give a fuck about my clients and their business. Like I love them so much. Like I just genuinely care so much. As one of my clients said, she's like, I mean, how many times can we hear you say you would do this for free if you didn't also love money? But like it's just the reality. I love my work and I care a lot. But the reason I'm saying that to you is that is something you can't fake. That is something AI can't do. And that is frankly something a lot of other people, I know if you're watching this, you care a lot, but a lot of people don't care. A lot of people do get into our space just because they hate their job or because they heard this was a quick way to make money or because they just want to make a sale or because they want to make 8 figures or not there's anything wrong with making 8 figures, but they really just care more about the money side of things or what they're trying to run away from and a lot less about the work and their clients. That is a huge differentiator, and I think we sometimes overcomplicate something like offer something AI can't and other people won't to be this really heady thing. And we're like, I've got to create this like super extra module for people. I don't know. And I think just not being too cool for school and showing you care at every opportunity and actually being the person that gives a fuck is, I think, my prediction. There's going to be a huge divide in 2026, and it's going to be the people who focus on delivery and who focus on giving a fuck, and the people who are just after the sale. And I think we'll really see what a difference, like how that really starts to differentiate you from AI and from other people. And one of the reasons that differentiates you from AI is AI can pretend to care. At the end of the day, we can just feel the difference, right? Like, and that can only give us so much. We can all feel the difference with a coach, with a therapist, with a lawyer, with our OBM, with a piece of content online. You can just feel the difference, and we are all humans. My coach, Lacey Seitz, she wrote a post about this and she shared this at a retreat. And I thought it was just really genius. She was just talking about how much of us are really craving mothering and how many of us as coaches and therapists are mothering in many ways and not all the ways. And I won't go too far down a rabbit hole. But I think part of what she's saying is what we're talking about here. That's something AI can't give you. And I think that's something so many of us don't realize we're really craving outside of just like the technical delivery of something. Like we can get information anywhere now at this point. Implementation, we can get like the fact that someone cares and like a little bit of mothering or fathering if you're a male. I think we forget how many of us are actually really craving that with our investments and in those containers, especially at a high level and high ticket. And I really think that's a prediction of mine for next year. I think that has always been true, but I think when there are less options and it's not a buyer's market and it's a seller's market, that matters less. When you're really good at what you do and there's not a lot of you, you don't have to give as many. Like it sounds screwed up, but like it. I think about the woman who does my hair. She has quite a lot of demand, and I know she cares. But I also, I'm trying to think of how to say this. She could not care and she would just be full because there's just not a lot of people like her in the city who can do what she can do, right? It doesn't matter as much for her, right? AI can't compete with her. There's not a lot of people. Like, it doesn't matter as much. For all of us, it really matters. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox on that one, though. Let me know, though, if you have thoughts, questions. If I keep touching my eyes, I'm so sorry, y'all. I should not have Petnala while we were doing this. Between this sweater and her, I have, like, fuzz everywhere, and it's driving me a little crazy, but that's okay. So if I look stoned at the end of this conversation, that's why I'm not actually stoned. We don't partake in that. Okay, so similarly with this, in terms of marketing trends, predictions for 2026, this is another one of those ones I think has always been true, but I think it mattered less in the past, and I think we are just again going to see a divide, and I think we're going to see how much this really matters, and that is, yes, what I said, and kind of like picking up on the idea of the personal brand that I was talking about for 2025, I think for 2026, it's going to be being the most you can be, or I think we'll see a complete pendulum swing, right? Like, I think we will see a lot of like AI, I don't know, fake bot people that people are having relationships with and accounts. And I think if it's good, people, I don't know, I think people are having relationships with probably already with their AI and with their chat GPT. I think I don't necessarily think that's going to go anywhere, to be quite honest. But because of that, I think you either sort of have to go in that realm, or you kind of have to go in that I'm going to be the most me I can be. Like, I'm going to be the most real human I can be. And you're just going to attract the person who wants the most human person, or the person who's like cool into a like human like bot. Hopefully that's making sense. That's a prediction of mine. Because I don't think we're suddenly going to like not have more. What are they? They are AI bots, AI people, AI clones, whatever that is. Um, and I think there will be consumers for either. I think most of us here are really on the personal brand, the human behind the business. How can we use AI to make ourselves more human? How can we bring more human into our branding, into our business? And I think with that, what we'll really see, I think, performing very well is being a normal person, and I'll explain what I mean by that, being the normal business owner, showing you care, like I just was talking about, but also just finding ways to be more that you can be. I think that is one of, I made a note for myself on this. I think that is one of the things that sounds so obvious and so like, oh, just be yourself and like the money will follow. I think that is one of the most challenging things to do in marketing. And I think it is so challenging for so many reasons. It is vulnerable. I think a lot of us don't know who we are. And not in a mean way. I just shared some of this on the podcast. I think I'm forever unpeeling layers and things that I thought was who I was with my mask down. I'm like, oh, is this just another way I learned to mask to create safety in the world? And like, I feel like that is forever work for many of us. I know for me, definitely with different traumas that have caused me to be very mask up and almost like create personas to create safety. I think that's just been like will be a lifetime of work for me. I would say I feel like the most me and masked down I've ever been in my business and in my life. And I'm sure there's more work and discovery for me in that. So I don't say that in any way to diminish what goes in the work that goes into that or how real that is. But I think there's that element of it. I think we have such identity shifts when we start a business as well. And I think that can be confusing to step into and own. I think it can be really vulnerable. I think pulling the mask down and sharing more of us, I think can just be very vulnerable. And I think for a lot of us, depending on our backgrounds, depending on our conditioning, depending on our traumas, can feel very unsafe. I know I've shared this before, but I know this sounds crazy to y'all because I've now been doing, like, I'm on video all the time and doing all the things, and I'm an ex-actress. I was terrified to post social media content, particularly in other people's Facebook groups when I started my business. I cannot tell you how much of my coaching was around that, my first 6 months of coaching with my current coach. So I say that all just to like normalize. I think this is a very easy thing for me to say. I do not think it is an easy thing in practice for a lot of people. I think with what I'm talking about too, like being the most you can be, I think it's a lot of like, how can I bear my heart and wear my heart on my sleeve and let people in and let people see my heart and my values and who I really am. But I do think that's what makes us magnetic, and that does matter in marketing. And I think that's what attracts the right people. But I think that's also how we can, again, do something AI can't. And I think we're going to just see this divide of like, either like we've got the bots and AI, like people are just like, I'm just going all AI, or it is the next layer of the personal brand, but it's sort of like the being the most you can be, I think is just going really to be what people are looking for and craving, because otherwise we're just kind of stuck in the middle. And I just think that is not going to perform super well or do a lot for people in business. I think with that, and then I'll kind of like skim through the rest, because I've got a lot of actual predictions for next year. We might have to do a part 2 in the new year. Let me know if you're watching now or on the replay, because I'm just seeing the time. I'm going to skim through a couple others. If you want me to do a part 2, I could do part 2 for our first live stream actually back in the new year. Maybe I'll do that with the rest of these, because I feel like there's quite a bit here, and I want to make sure we have a conversation around them. But let me know if you'd be into hearing that. The other thing I've really been thinking about this, I was having a conversation with my coach around this as well. I think we're going to see, this might be more of a trend and just a preference in terms of what people are wanting, and we might see the pendulum swing again. But I think because we have gotten so burnt, because of the trust recession, because we've gotten so burnt out by people who are not who they say they are, because we've had so many, particularly in the personal development space, coaches who are like on their private plane in front of the Eiffel Tower with their champagne bottle, and like, I love me a glass of champagne. I love the Eiffel Tower. I've never actually flown private, but like, I'm not mad at that. But I think we've seen so much of this like marketing that is very much like, look at how extremely wealthy I am and like all the things I buy marketing as like the whole marketing, strategy. I think we're going to just see a trend towards and a craving for more of the normal business owner and normal success. And what I mean by that is not making, I mean, you can make fun of, but like, you do you, and you get on, like, you share your thought leadership, but it's not necessarily saying that that's bad or not wanting success or not wanting money or not highlighting the things. And, I went to Iceland and had a really bougie trip and the wonderful things there. But I think it's going to be showcasing things in a in a more normal way. Like I think about this a lot. Like I am quite successful. I make great money. I'm the breadwinner. We have a very bougie life in New York City. But I'm also such a normal business owner. Like I work a normal business week. I still have normal business challenges. Like the things that I'm grateful to my business for are things, yes, like I got to take a bougie trip to Iceland and that's wonderful. And I'm having a best year in business. I'm going to buy myself a gift that I'll share with you all. But it's also things like the fact that I get to have my husband at home and like after this live stream, go see him before my next client call. It's things like I get to go to a gym where I built a community and I have time to spend 2 hours at the gym for some fitness classes I want, right? Like it's things like I get to go be with my family, and even though there's 49 of us and it might be a little intense, right? Like that I'm able to do that, or when my dad was sick, that I could go be by his side, right? Those are the things that really matter to me, and I think those are the like more normal life things that my business gives me that are still, in my opinion, such luxuries. I mean, I think those are the things, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I think those are the kinds of things we all want, right? Like the fact that last night I could spend time with my stepson and was able to like park work, and then I just came back to work at night and I had like a big block of time in the middle of like the evening and day, and that I had the resources to be able to like take us out and do something fun, right? Like that to me feels like, I don't know, better than a private plane. But I feel like those are the types of values and things people are craving to hear more of, like just a little, I don't know, maybe more grounded or more like real. But I also think those are things that are still really lovely and shiny and maybe not sexy, maybe they're more grounded, but aspirational. Those are things Kim 10 years ago when I started this business wanted and didn't have. I was scraping by. I could barely afford my New York City rent. I definitely could not have retired my husband. I stressed. I had a meltdown when I bought us 2 coffees and one of those little date chocolate balls. I spent $16 and it was like 73 cents and had a meltdown because that put me over my budget. And I wanted so badly to be able to get that for he was my boyfriend at the time, not my husband, and treat him to something. But I was like that tight on cash at the time because I was pouring everything back into my own coach and my business and growing it. So everything I'm talking about now literally was on my wish list. But it's not a private plane, right? It's not me dancing on stage and I don't know, like jumping out of a cannon, right? Like I think it is very I don't know what the right word is, like grounded, I would say. I think people are craving more of that, whatever your field is, right? Whether if you're in fitness and health, people still want six-pack abs. They still want to look great. But I think some of the like extreme versions of the way people showcase that and also showcase it without the reality of what goes into it and almost like the doctored up version of it. I think people are craving like the aspirational, but the aspirational that still feels like this is what I would actually want on a day to day. And I think we will always have people that are looking for, here are my shiny 7 secrets to get rich quick, to get six-pack abs overnight. People will always want to give their power away and will always look for the magic pill and shiny bullet. That has been for as long as humans have existed. And in terms of a trend for 2026, for most of us, I think there's also a huge group of people who are sort of over that, right? We've all matured and grown up in the online space in terms of what is and is not true. And I think there's a lot of people who are looking more for the normal success. I don't even know, like, I need a better term for that. Someone give me a better term for that in the comments. But I think y'all know what I'm talking about. Something that just feels a little bit more like relatable. And I think I think the age of the guru is done. I do think, again, there will still be a couple of people who monetize that because there will always be people looking for shiny pills and secrets. But for the rest of us who never wanted to be that anyway, I really think in terms of marketing trends, more of this, and I think this was true this year as well, more of this, we are peers. We are in this together. I am not better than you. I am not a guru. I don't have all of the answers. I might be an expert in this one area. You might be an expert in your one area. We're going to come together and partner, right? That's how I think about this with my clients. My clients are an expert in their field. Many of my clients make more money than me, right? I am an expert in business and in coaching, and I get to be an expert in them and their brain and their business to support them, but I don't need to be an expert in what they do, right? Like we get to be partners in that way, not Kim as the superior guru who knows everything and has all the answers. Like, no, please don't. If anybody thinks that's what I do, like, don't please ever hire me for that. I do not have all the answers. You have all the answers, and my job is to support you in finding those answers. And your business has all the answers. My job is to support you in finding the answers your business has. That's why my clients get great results and blow up. But I think we're gonna see that more in 2026 in terms of marketing that people are really craving that works. We saw it in 2025, and I think we're just going to see more and more. Like, nobody wants to be talked at. People are smart. People can go to AI and get a bunch of information, and AI doesn't treat you. AI guesses you. AI tells you that you're the most amazing thing in the entire world, how smart you are, how good your ideas are, and then it gives you the information. If we can get that from AI, and then on social media, people are acting like a guru and telling us how stupid we are, right? Like, why would we not just go to AI? Like, that is one thing we have to do better than AI, which is not yes people and like fluff them up or like puff them up, but find a way to talk with people and to bring our expertise without talking at or talking down to people. I think that's already been the case, but I think we're just going to see that work even better as we go into 2026. Okay, I'm going to put a pause here. I'm going to highlight where I left off because I definitely have some more. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 more things here. So what I will do is, because this is also a lot to digest, and we do not need a 2-hour live stream because one thing I do know is everybody's attention spans are shorter as we're moving forward into 2026. So I will pick this up and let me know if you all are like, we don't want to hear more, then we have a different live stream plan for the beginning of the year. Otherwise, I will bring this back with the rest of our my predictions are really what I'm paying attention to for 2026 and what I'm talking about with clients. If that's valuable, you let me know and we'll bring that back. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it was helpful for you, just big picture in terms of thinking about how to think about this in your business. I would really invite you over the holidays to take some time again to look back over your business, to take a look at what were those wins, what worked well, what do you want to do more of, what didn't work as well, what are those opportunities, and what are the tea leaves in your business telling you, as well as your industry, right? Your micro like audience algorithm. What are the tea leaves they're telling you? What predictions do you have based on kind of what you know is going on? Your business will always tell you this. Bring this to your coach if you are not sure. I think these are great conversations to be having. And then again, I will share the rest of my thoughts in 2026 in terms of what I'm thinking of. If you have questions, reflections, feel free to drop them in the comments below. You can always DM me. This will be in the vault. So if you're in the vault, you're on the email list. You can also send over an email if you have a question about any of these. And if you're looking for support in 2026 and you want one-on-one support to help you get clear on what works for you, what works for your business so that you can grow and scale to 250K years and above, I'm excellent at what I do. I've been fully booked for years. That's what I support my clients with. I don't have an opening currently for ongoing coaching, but I will be opening up some week-long strategy intensives. And I do think I've historically only done a couple of VIP days in New York City. I might open up a couple of more of those. Those we do have to plan a little bit in advance because I have to make sure I can carve off, obviously, a full day off for you. But if you think you want to come to New York City and spend a whole day side by side where I'm looking at you with your business, to do that audit, to do that strategic planning, and we can also implement together, and whether that's map out a launch strategy or all of your content for the year, or update your funnels, reach out to me because we'll have a couple of select dates for those. But either way, I'll drop a coaching consultation link below that's completely free. If you also want to get on my wait list for an ongoing one-on-one spot, please take me up on the call because we can also see if it's a fit. And I do believe we should have at least one-on-one spot opening up in the next couple of months. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure exactly when because it depends on client renewals. All right, I love you all so much. Thank you for spending 2025 with me. I know based on everything we were talking about, it is so saturated and loud out there. So I do not take it for granted that you choose to be here and hang with me and share this content with me. It means the world to me. Like I was saying earlier, I do care a lot. I care about my clients, but I also care about you so much. I love this work so much, but I also want all of us to win. And I hope this content and these lives have supported you in that way. And I'm looking forward to bringing you more in 2026. I'm not going anywhere. And over the holidays, I hope you also tune into the podcast and enjoy those conversations and those questions I have for you. And I'll see you in the new year when we pick back up. So much love to y'all. Bye.